We have our first speaker coming up now. Her name is Asal Gibson. She goes by Vox. I'm sure she can explain that to you. And she is the CEO of Cyroot.io.
Yes.
Very good. Give a round of applause to Asal. Why don't you introduce yourself while I get you set up?
Sup, Tech Alley? I just want to let you know I go by Vox, which means voice. So if this goes out, I don't need this damn thing. I'm loud enough. Can y'all hear me? Yeah. All right, cool. I'm CEO and founder of Cyroot. Cyroot was born in Henderson and is growing up here in Henderson. So we're proud of our baby company. We also have a nonprofit arm. So if you see here on our site.
No, not there yet. Not there yet. Sorry.
No, I'm pointing to that sign.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Our nonprofit, a lot of you might have heard of Cyroot Academy, where we provide education at no cost to military and veterans. These are technical programs. We offer certifications and so on. So I'll talk a little bit about that.
Okay, there we go. You have the floor.
All right. Should I do microphone or no microphone? Microphone, raise your hand. No microphone, put him down.
Microphone.
All right, cool. Thanks for your vote. All right, so I'm here to talk about government contracting. So I'll tell you a little bit about my background. I came from Washington, D.C. I worked for the United States government. I worked at the Pentagon as an IT strategist. Before that, I worked at the State Department. So came from government environment here to Las Vegas, and I was, not really familiar with the gaming industry, so I really did not know what to do here. So I started my own company and started doing consulting, got a contract with Airbnb doing risk intelligence, and then MGM. Got a contract with the county, and it was just a lot of fun. But then I decided, hey, I have a security clearance. There isn't a lot of competition here in Las Vegas. In fact, none for government contracts. So I want to start that. And the process was so painful because I came from the government sector, right? I just showed up and people gave me jobs. But to be on the other end, to actually get those contracts, it was very difficult to learn the process. Like, where do I start? Like, how do I bid on a contract? So, took a lot of pain, but I've made it. I'm here. I compete for government contract on federal, state, county, city level, all levels. And I'm here today to share my experience with you. So how many people in here are already doing business with the government? Raise your hand. All right, handful. How many people in here want to do business with the government? Everybody else, leave, come back in 20 minutes. All right, I want to show you some tricks. So tell you a little bit the agenda for this evening, a little bit about Cyroot and what we do, a little bit about government contracting, and I'm going to tell you the process, what you have to do if this is something you're interested in doing for your company. And we'll talk about security clearance. This is a question I get quite often. How do I get a security clearance? What's the difference between me getting security clearance versus my company getting security clearance? And it's just, if you're out of Washington, D.C., there aren't a lot of people that could answer these kinds of questions, right? And being here in Vegas, it's just hard getting information. So I'm changing that to provide you with this information so you can make decisions for your business. We're an IT and cybersecurity company. We do everything from building websites to upgrading your server rooms, switches, firewalls, you name it. We're a vendor of a big company, Fortinet. It's a top $30 billion company that we represent. We installed all of their equipment for Clark County School District. In fact, we upgraded 363 schools last year, upgraded their firewalls and handled the cyber attack that took place in 2023. We started Cyroot Academy because we're a company with a heart, right? I've always been an educator. I'm in a faculty in the business school, the Lee Business School at UNLV. I teach business and cybersecurity. So I saw a lot of people drop out because they either can't afford the program or veteran having a hard time getting their GI Bill to pay for the program. So I basically got with a lot of my buddies and I said, hey, would you volunteer to teach certification programs that people can't afford? And every single person said yes. So we started the formation just last year. We kicked off in January, and now we're an education provider at Creech and Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada State, our buddies over there, CSN, Las Vegas Library. We're putting out classes to anyone that wants to come and learn at no cost. These are the list of services. Now, I'm not going to talk about everything, touched a little bit about the education part, but I'm here to talk about government contracting for you. And again, if you're not interested in this, grab a drink and come back. But if you are, I want to tell you a couple of things you could do, because there's a lot of money on the table on the federal and state side. So the government has something called set aside. And basically, the government want to have an equal playing field. So they're saying, hey, we're going to set aside percentage of contracts to go to small business. So if you are a company of 50 people or less, if you make less than 700,000, you're considered small business. And we'll talk about the process of you getting certified so you qualify for that percentage. Now, last year, in 2024, the government gave out a lot of money in contracting to small business. Can anyone give me a number of how much do you think small businesses of 50 or less, $700,000 or less, got a contract with the government? What was that total number? 10 million? 10 billion? 60 billion?
An auctioneer.
How much?
I think it'd be an auctioneer.
Oh. 189 billion. Okay? And now this is not just IT and cybersecurity. These are all services. So health, construction, legal, you name it. Janitorial services, anything the government needs, they're outsourcing these services to businesses like us. So here's a breakdown. So small disadvantaged business. Now that is also referred to as 8A. Under this category, also a Native Hawaiian, Native American Indian company, and you have to, go through the application process and prove that you are a Native Hawaiian or Native American Indian to qualify for that. Or a women-owned business, also you could qualify as disadvantaged business. The government set aside 5% of its contracting of that 189 billion, which equals $78 billion. Can you believe that? They gave out $78 billion in contracting. Women small-owned. How many women small-owned businesses here? Almost half the room. 5%. $30 billion. These are real numbers. Service disabled veteran. Who qualifies for this category? 1, 2. Government gave out $32.8 billion in total in 2024. Hub zone, I mentioned this, but Las Vegas is not a hub zone, so these are underutilized business zones. So if you're in a tribal area, something like that, so that you still, want 3% of contracting, which is $17.5 billion. And other businesses that are not certified, so if you're still going through the certification process and you don't actually have that SBA certification, you can still bid on contract. And these businesses want $24 billion. Are y'all excited? When I was looking at these numbers, I was like, damn, how much can I get for my company? These are exciting numbers. All right, so the SBA, this is the Small Business Administration. So our friend Brandon is from the Veteran Small Business Administration. So if you are a vet, go see him and he will set you up with this certification. So you have to go on there and fill out the process. This is the most tedious things you will do in this process. Like, this is when you sell your firstborn child at this process. Like, mine got declined because they were like, well, you provided your spouse's information, but he didn't provide his personal assets. Invite him to complete the application. After I put all that, and then I got declined again because they said, well, you didn't put the value of your personal assets like furniture and jewelry. And I went like, gosh, it's really awkward to ask how much this Rolex was or my diamond ring. Like, this is not your damn business. I'm not going to tell you. But that's the information they need. You need to tell them exactly how much you own in order to qualify. Even if you think, well, I have nice things, I have nice furniture, I can't qualify for disadvantaged business, you're wrong. It's just they're collecting information and you need to provide all of that. So set aside some weekends to work on this application process. Now, your next step is to go to SAM.gov. This is the registration process. So you completed your profile. Now, you're not approved yet. You just filled out the application and you have a number, right? Now you go on SAM.gov and say, hey, U.S. government, I am Cyroot LLC, and I would like to bid. And they say, okay, well, prove that you are who you say you are. Put all your paperwork. Provide the legal stuff. Give me a checking account number. Let me verify who you are. And then they go to the SBA and compare that information and make sure it matches. And then they come back and, of course, they tell you there's an error, and you have to do it all over again. And then they give you something called a case code. And that allows you to bid on contracts. And once you get that case code, you're basically golden. You can compete now, right? Even if your SBA certification are still pending, you can go and say, I'd like to bid on this, I qualify for it. NAICS code, these are codes specific to your industry. So for example, if you're in construction, you're gonna have a different code than mine. I'm in IT. If you're in education, you're gonna have a different code. So basically, you look up the contract based on your NAICS code, and then you complete your business profile. And then you have to create something called a capability statement. And this trips a lot of people. How many people here have a capability statement? All right, less than half the room. So a capability statement is like the resume for your company. See, when you were looking for a job as an individual, right, you were John Smith, and you went to look for a job, you needed a resume, and you go to networking events, and you go online, apply for jobs, and you show them your experience. But on the government side, you're applying for a job, but for your company. So this is a resume for your company where you're telling the government what you can and can't do and what kind of skills you have within your company. So if you see, this is an example of ours, and if you scan this, you can zoom in and actually check it out as an example to see. So you have to put, your capability statement, mission, or whatever, your core capabilities. What does your company have to offer? And I know this looks intimidating because you're like, well, I'm a two-person company. That's okay, because you can get people to work for you, right? Example, we bid on some contracts that require specific things in technology that we've never done. But we have friends, in the community, so we make phone calls and say, hey, I'm bidding on this contract. Would you be willing to serve on it? I need someone to do data migration. Would you be willing to do that? And they 100% of the time they say, here's my resume. And once you get their resume, you can add them to your capability statement and in your experience under past performance. So you tell the contracting officer, yes, sir, yes, ma'am, we've done this work because I have someone who is willing to do it. And once you get this done, then you get all your codes from SAM.gov, you put them in there, and when you start going to conferences, with the government will invite you to go to conferences. You travel to DC, or there are tons of conferences here in Vegas. You walk around with your capability statement because you're no longer you are the company. Got it? Clear as mud? All right. Then there's something called Apex. Now, the government recommends you get an Apex Accelerator registration. Apex is a nonprofit organization. It was a genius idea, genius business idea. They basically formed it and went to the government and said, hey, you keep getting those crappy applications from businesses. What if you give us money and we review them for you before the businesses submit them? And DOD said, okay. So that's all they do. They review your application. Now, they don't do things like pricing. So for example, if I see a bid where, Department of Treasury wants to upgrade their website, I can't look at Alan, by the way, Alan is my CIO, and say, Alan, we should charge $1 million. And Alan goes, okay, let's do it. And then we send it over to Apex. Apex would not spot that. They would not say, hey, that's a ridiculous offer you're making. A website should cost $5,000, not $1 million. They don't care about your pricing. What they care about is you're creating the application in a way that it matches what the contract officer wants. So if the contract officer says, you need to write this in Arial font, size 12. Oh, by the way, you have to print it out and mail it to us. Oh, also put a copy of it on a USB drive and mail that too, right? And you miss that. That's what Apex is going to say, hey, you can't just email it, make sure you're following the steps because the government is going to throw your application away. So they are very valuable to make sure that you got the formatting right, so you got a chance, right? So make sure you do the Apex Accelerator registration. It takes about 6 weeks for it to get approved, and then you get assigned a rep that works with you. Now here's the bad news. Now you got through all of this. The government just said, hey, when you handle contracts for us, I don't know where you store in those. I bet you there are people in here don't have their own domain. I bet you there are people in here still using yahoo.com and AOL as their email. So when you go apply for a contract with the government, how do you think the contract officer feels about that? You're not handling, it's a true story. You're not handling classified information, but there's something called CUI. That's the classification, which is controlled unclassified information. So what happens is the government sends you the contract, sends you information, you have the contract officer, you get more information on the work. When you compile all those together, they become classified. And the government worries about that. So they want to make sure that you do have an environment that is safe to host their information. And I don't blame them for that, because in the cyber world, the vulnerabilities are coming from us, from vendors, right? The government got their act together. It's us that used yahoo.com and sent emails, attachments, and not actually encrypt them. So the government came out with this and said, hey, everybody has to be level 1 CMMC. So that's a cybersecurity maturity model. Now this is about 100 questions. If you're a tech savvy, it would take you maybe 2 to 3 hours to fill it out, okay? If you're not tech savvy, don't do it. Because you don't want to get declined for this. So you could hire a company like us and it would say, hey, come take a look at our environment and how we handle things, and get us through level 1. Now level 2, the government is pushing to make this a mandate, and it's really, really bad news. So I started making phone calls. I went to DC, we went to New Orleans, Alan and I, to talk to people about this. And we got companies say, we'll do it for you for $140,000. And I'm like, say what? Like, I don't know about you, but I don't have an extra $140,000 to pay for a certification that doesn't guarantee me any business. That basically just lets me play. I don't have that. So, I looked at Alan, and Alan looked at me, and we're like, let's talk to more companies. So we want to talk to more companies, and they say, we'll do it for $2,500 a month for 2 years. And I'm like, God damn, this is a business I want to be in. Like, how are you charging this kind of money? That's insane. So Alan looked at me and he goes, you know what, Vox, we're a cybersecurity company. We don't need these people. Why don't we get certified and certify ourselves? And I said, okay, Alan, you go first. So Alan went and took out classes, and he got certified in CMMC. There's one more level he has to do, which enable him to certify other companies. Because I think what other companies are charging is really ridiculous, this amount of money. Because all it takes is for someone to take a look at it and say, hey, you know, like, what is your hosting environment? What's your email domain? Take a look at your website, make sure everything is tight. And they look at it from a cybersecurity point of view, right? So that's what we're doing is level 2. Level 3, no one in here, no offense, but no one in here qualifies for level 3 or want to do, because you have to be a big company like Lockheed Martin. When you're level 3, you're basically making airplanes for the government. You're beyond top secret. You're hosting special access program type of information in your environment. So the government want to know that you are doing the right thing to protect their data, right? And that costs hundreds, if not millions of dollars to get that level 3 certification, so don't worry about that. Here's a chart that shows you the different levels 1 and 2 and 3 and what does it actually cover and who does it apply to. As a small business owner, you need to get through level 1. It's the most simple, most basic, but that might cost you money because, again, if you're using yahoo.com, you're going to have to go get a domain for your company, abc.com company, and make sure you have the email and show that you actually do have your act together, right? I hope no one's going to hand me a yahoo.com business card this evening. People are just going to be like, I don't have a business card.
Hand it to me, I'll help you fix it.
Hand it to Alan. He fixes all the problems. All right, I want to talk about security clearances. Now, this is a question that comes up a lot outside of DC because people are just not familiar with how things work. So you start out with public trust that gets you into like state type of handling. With DoD required secret level clearance, then top secret. And the difference between those, really, it's you have classified information, and then a top secret, it tells you who did it. It gives you the name and the location. So it says, like, this is a secret operation, we can't talk about it. Top secret, it says, oh, it's in Afghanistan. And Major Aaron Rodgers led the movement. So that's the difference. So top secret with SCI, that's you get right in that particular department. So if you're on the DoD side, you go get an SCI, which basically says that you have access to classified information through that, specific to that department. Now, facility clearance, if you're bidding on a contract that requires handling of classified information, which very well you could be, right? If you're bidding on a contract with DoD or a State Department, and if you do intelligence, languages, IT stuff, that's all pretty much classified, you have to have a facility clearance, which basically says, hey, it's great that you have clearance, but your company has to have a clearance. And that's a catch-22 because you can't apply for that, and you can't apply to the contract without it. So you have to have a contract to have that clearance. And you like the chicken or the egg, which one comes first? Like, how do I get facility clearance? The way to go about that, the loophole, is you partner with a company that has a facility clearance and say, if Brendan gets a contract with the government and he's doing mentoring and coaching, and he has facility clearance, and I say, hey, Brendan, can I help you with that contract? Because I'm certified, I can come help you do this contract. Can you sponsor my security clearance? Brendan can turn around and tell the government, wait, well, I got Vox to help me with this contract. I need her, so I need you to sponsor her clearance. That's the only way it would happen. So partnering with other companies in this space is very, very important to get you really to the last step, which is getting your facility clearance. All right, so what can we do? We're putting out classes on this. I get approached a lot about this here. No one cares in DC because everyone does it. But out here, people are very curious on how to do government contracting, what's the registration process, how long does it take, how much money does it take. So we're putting out classes through our nonprofit to help other businesses on this. Now, I only have 20 minutes to do this presentation, but there's a lot more into it. So if you're interested in learning more about these classes, we'll send you some information on them. We provide consultation and, of course, help you with the certification process for the CMMC, where you don't have to pay bazillions of dollars to get it done. This form right here, if you are interested in getting more information or getting into this space, click on it. It has basic questions about your company, how big is your company, and for us to contact you, it's either me or Alan, probably Alan, that would say, hey, like, you know, how can I help you with this process, and send you information about the classes and so on. So one question I get a lot is, how long does this take? How long does this process take, this whole thing? Can anyone guess?
A year.
Huh?
A year.
A year.
8 months.
8 months.
90 days.
90 days. But where? Where about the world?
I think it's 6 months.
6 months? All right. So the early on registration process, to get to here, right, you could do up to here 6 months, right? If you want to get to level 2, it might take you up to a year. And some people say to me, well, I don't have a year. And I'm like, why? Where are you going to go in a year? What are you going to do in a year that you're not doing right now? Like, if I tell you there's $189 billion the government sets aside for a small business, you don't want it? Okay, don't want it, fine. The other thing, when people say, well, that's a long time, I just don't have the patience for it. Well, to be a true practitioner, to be a professional, takes years. You want to go to medical school? It takes 8 to 10 years to be a doctor. You want to be a lawyer? It takes 8 years and exams. Hideous exams that people fail all the time, only to get a job at a law firm, not making a lot of money. You want to be a CPA? Same story. All of these industries that guarantee you a solid career field takes 8 years, 10 years, more. And still you got to go out and build a clientele and build a brand name and do all of that, right? I'm amazed when I say to someone it takes a year to get this done, and people are like, that's too long, I don't have a year. And I'm like, okay, so I don't think a year is a long time for you to compete for federal contract, right? And that's just my personal opinion, because there is so much money out there, and there are so many people in that space, they don't know what they're doing. Like, we went to the 8A conference in New Orleans. People didn't know what Apex was. I was telling them, like, hey, have Apex review your RFPs. And they're like, what is that? Right? Because you have to do a lot of research to know everything you need to do to really position yourself and, you know, in that space. All right? So this is the end.
Bob, thank you so much. That was incredible. And I have a copy of the presentation. I promised everyone, all the attended, I have your email addresses. I'm going to send it to you because honestly, I learned a ton tonight as well. You know, and there's all those billions of dollars out there. I want some of them. So
Yes,
so
absolutely.
I'm sure you do too.
Thanks.
Box, Gibson, thanks everyone. Give a round of applause.
Thank you.